This is the Get Better Everyday podcast with Matt Gouget. Actionable advice from real life superheroes who, just like you, are in relentless pursuit of the best version of themselves. Whether you're just getting started or have been at it for years, my hope is that this podcast injects you with some positive energy to continue doing what brings you joy. Join me as I interview the best of the best in business, sports, and life. Let's grow together. All right, Matt Gouget, Get Better Everyday podcast, here with a special guest, Brooks Landry, investor, entrepreneur, real estate agent, Envision Media, all the things. Thanks so much for joining today, brother.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. And that's where all these grays come from, is for as that list continue to go, it's like gray, sleepless night. But
more
yeah.
Stress, more responsibility, more adulting, which we'll get into. I'm excited to have this conversation because I know that, like many of us out there, the road to any sort of success is filled with disappointments and failures and all that stuff. And I want people listening to the podcast to understand that if you're listening to this podcast, if you find inspiration, please consider subscribing, share it with a friend. I know we're going to get into some cool stories from Brooks today. So I guess first start with, who are you?
Yeah. So I'm a New England raised boy, moved to California at the age of 21, and I've been in California ever since. So my entire family is from, still lives back in Maine. So I grew up in Maine. Big sports guy my entire life. Love the competition, love the teamwork, love the camaraderie. And I moved to California to kind of switch things up in 2021. I got into mortgages like Matt, right? And then moved into real estate full time about 11 years ago.
Okay. So you've been doing real estate for about 11 years. And so, been in it a year or two, seen a thing or two.
Yeah.
I love the be a realtor bit. You got that on Instagram and on TikTok. It's wildly entertaining, right? The whole world of real estate. I guess let's go back to, this is my favorite question by far that I ask people is, they overestimate what they can do in a year or two, and they underestimate what they can do in a decade or two. So, right now, Envision Media, you're finding success, your own personal business, agents that you're helping out with that, your own personal business. I know that you did a big number, like 80 million in real estate last year, but it didn't start out like that, right? So maybe let's rewind a decade.
Yeah.
And, where was Brooks Landry a decade ago on the very first few steps of that journey?
Decade ago. And it started a little bit before that because I was helping out with my wife's business. She was in real estate. I was the mortgage guy. She was in real estate. We started to kind of transition a little bit, but it started with after losing basically everything. So we essentially started in 2003 in the mortgage market, saw that entire process, that entire financial crisis form, and then come to a head. 2008, 2009, 2010 is when I transitioned into real estate. So I was telling the story a couple of days back where we actually had a handful of investment properties all over the country. We did what a lot of people are doing, buying homes, renting them out, doing condo hotels, flips, the whole 9 yards. So we went a little heavy with that. Got into a negotiation with a developer at the time where we decided to buy our owner-occupied property. And I negotiated with the developer at the time that they pay for 6 months of mortgage payments on our behalf. And they said, okay, we'll do it under one stipulation. That one stipulation is you need to use our bank instead of the one that you're used to. Fast forward about 3 or 4 months, and we receive a notice of default in the mail saying that our mortgage hasn't been paid for 4 months. The bank essentially defaulted on everything, eventually closed their doors within days or a week or two after that. So it's got me stuck with 5 different investment properties all over the country, one being built in Tampa. I can't refinance out because we're in the middle of a financial crisis and every bank is going out of business and nobody is lending. I don't care if you have 50% down or 90% down, you weren't getting financing. So I'm sitting there with all my investments gone. My home's about to be foreclosed on. We just found out that we're pregnant with our first son and with our first child. And my back was against the wall, essentially. So I took a step back from that. We lost everything. We had a short sale on a handful of projects. We had to foreclose on 2 of them, and our credit was completely shot because of that one ask And if I like to rewind time a little bit, you kind of look back and you're like, damn, if I hadn't have done that one ask, where would I be at right now as far as, a real estate portfolio and whatnot? Would it have been different monetarily? Absolutely. But it taught me everything. And it really had my wife and I with our backs against the wall. Her and I as a team really dug into real estate full time. And had some friends in the business that helped us out with financing. And then we said, let's go after this real estate thing. I started door knocking in a neighborhood that was controlled by some of the biggest players, even to this day, in the California real estate, where we're talking people are doing $300, $400, $500 million a year in sales. And probably, I would say, two of the top maybe 20, 25 agents in the state of California were in my backyard. And I'm door knocking for short sales, door knocking for foreclosures. That's a difficult way to start your business. Knocking on somebody's door and saying, Matt, I understand that you've fallen on some tough times. I want to give you some advice on loan modifications, talk to you about a short sale. They got their kids in the background and they're like, don't knock on my door asking for business when I'm in a time like this. So it was difficult. It was definitely difficult to get into it.
Yeah. I mean, that's an awesome story. And I think that although like it was difficult times, you would probably agree that shaped you, that gave you some of the grit, some of the like some of the fire that still burns in you today was built during those times, right?
It was. And it really kind of, we've got this picture, my wife and I, where we were in tears and we knew we were about to be pushed out of our home, but we knew we had a bun in the oven. And I'm like, babe, let's just put these zeros up and show that we have nothing. And we're going to look back on this down the line. And we do look back on that picture. We're like, we thought it was over. We thought it was done, but our backs were against the wall and we went hard, and we just put together a plan with little money that we had. We knew it didn't matter how much money we had for marketing. We had the time and the energy to get into it. I was 25, 26. She was 27, 28. She's a couple years older. And we just started door knocking like crazy. We would hit 1,000 homes a day with door hangers for about 3 weeks straight until we started to generate leads and generate loans or opportunities. And those door hangers cost like, I don't know, 0.02 cents per hanger that you buy through Vistaprint. So we just kind of poured our little earnings that we had into it and just milked every single penny in order to build a brand. And it started to kind of roll, started to get buyers, started to do more transactions. My first year in real estate, I did 12 transactions, and it was 100% buyers in the middle of 2009, 2010. And then it started to kind of progress. I did 15 the next year, and then it went higher and higher, and it's gone higher every year, but it started to turn from heavy on buyers, no sellers. And then it started to focus more towards sellers and then less on buyers. And then at that point, once you've built a brand and built a farm that knows and trusts you, you start to get a little bit more heavy on the listing side. But yeah, it definitely shaped me without a doubt.
I love it. I love the comeback story and really some of the conversations I'm having lately where, who knows what 2023 brings, but in the real estate market, there's volatility. In the mortgage market, there's volatility, the stock market everywhere. I think that me and you sit really close to the true effects of, housing inflation, shelter inflation, right? And it's having effect on families. I think guys like me and you, because I can relate, being clean 11 years, like I hit the bottom of bottoms and clawed my way out. When we see a storm ahead, there's a sick part of me that's excited, right? Like you started with zero, you have the picture with the zeros for proof, right? Like I'm not afraid of having nothing because I've done it and I've built what I've built today. So I know how to build it, right? Some people too, in our industry or other industries might have got their start in 2019 or 2020. It's been all sunshine and rainbows, right? Never seen a tough time. I would love to pull out of you some advice, right? Because somebody might be listening to this. They might be in tough times. They might be headed to tough times, for those first 6 months, 12 months. It takes a lot because I know real estate's not like, selling a protein shake, right? To get 12 people to entrust you with the biggest transaction of their life is a big deal. So besides just hard work, what was it that went into like getting some momentum back?
Yeah, you need to believe in yourself. And exactly what you had just said was the crazy ones are like, I kind of like this difficult time. Like I would rather me verse, let me go into this fire. When it gets uncomfortable, that's when I feel a little bit more comfortable. We were actually, not to go on a side note, we were at this conference in San Antonio this past weekend, and I'm with Real Brokerage, and Ryan Serhant was the keynote speaker, and he's on stage and he's like, a lot of you probably don't feel this way. I couldn't be any more excited about this market. This is going to be difficult. And I know because I've been through it, and he basically started right around the same time you and I did, or myself did in the industry as well. It was difficult times make the people, right? So, I guess my advice with it would be more of a believe in yourself. I would definitely think a coaching product, a coaching system in place for somebody that's done it before is incredibly important to be able to kind of leverage the success in the knowledge that other people have done.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
There's definitely truth to the fact that success leaves clues. I
Yeah.
remember starting off in mortgage. I didn't know anything about anything,
Yeah.
but when I clawed my way to 27 deals the first year, I looked at people who did 50 deals and 80 deals and 100 deals. What are those guys doing? Talk to them. And then I did 50, and I talked to people that did 100, which is awesome. Maybe shed some light too on how you find mentors, or what success you found, in your industry, which will relate to any industry, right? As far as, growing, finding mentors, getting around the right people.
Yeah, I think at this time, as this market turns, and you and I touched on this before, was, over the past 4 or 5 years, this has been smooth sailing. You essentially could get into it. Speaking on the real estate side of things, where nobody had seen a difficult turn. Interest rates are incredibly low. Property values are going through the roof, especially here in the Bay Area, but nationwide as well. It was easy. This is the time more than anything that you start to solidify your foundation. You get your foundation done. If you were relying on leads before to generate your business, this is when you now need to have a farm. Regardless, I'm a huge believer in farms, and having a farm that I've generated. The coach that I went with was under the Tom Ferry Network, lady by the name of Eileen Rivera. She's unbelievable. She gave me the craziest advice, and I'm like, am I wasting my time with this? This doesn't make sense. And she had said, Brooks, I need you to find the farm that is most dominated by the biggest hitters in your area, and that's the farm you get into. And I'm like, Eileen, like, it just so happened to be my backyard and the home that we were renting into. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, these guys are doing 200-300 transactions a year, and there's like 5 of them. How am I ever going to be on this list? And she had said, you don't understand how much low-hanging fruit is available for you to build your brand within that farm. And as long as you stay consistent and understand that you're going to have some tough times through it, you're going to continue to push up. And that's exactly what we did. We went into the farm. We started to work with the people that didn't like those top producers, that weren't comfortable. They didn't vibe with those top producers, and they gave us an opportunity. And then as we continue to grow, it's now me and those top producers as listings being interviewed at the table. So it's just, there's time that you need to put into there. But as far as the coaching, even joining a team of a top producer, right? If you're newer to the industry and you've got somebody that's doing 150, whatever the transaction amount is per year, but is clearly an authoritarian figure in the space in your neighborhood or your area, buyer's agent, get in there, whatever you can do, and just learn and listen and learn and listen and understand that this is a cycle and that this is going to turn. And I think that's the misconception of a lot of the agents, newer agents that I talk to. Sky is falling, and that's just not the case whatsoever.
Right. Yeah. And to pull something out that you said, which I think is like really valuable advice for people, is, sharpening your skill set, getting educated is the most important thing. Like you said, you can join a team. Anybody who reaches out to me is like, hey, I'm thinking about getting into mortgage, and I see you and you're doing this and you're doing that. And you've got a great team. What's your advice to me? Whatever you do, be around people that are doing it at a high level, like you want to do, and learn from them. Whether you make 42,000 or 400,000, that's irrelevant, because those first 12, 24 months, the skills that you're going to grow are going to propel you for decades, right? And you see it on your side, on the real estate side. I see it on the mortgage side. Somebody's going for the best split, and I want to make 97.2% of the commission. No, you don't. No. You want to make 97% of the learning. You want to learn as much as you can.
Great
get
point.
As good as you can at it, and that goes for all industries, right? If you're going to work at I don't know. I can't think of another industry offhand. I guess I'm so dialed into real estate, right? But no matter what you're doing, if you're making widgets, man, you want to be the best darn widget maker. You want to be around the person that's been widget making for the last 42 years.
You know, it's funny that you just said it that exact way. My mother always used to say to me, she's like, you know, as far, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? I'm like, you know, I'm not sure. I want to do this. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a professional athlete, whatever the case. And she's like, I just want you to be happy. And I don't care if you shovel shit. I need you to be the best shit shoveler that you could possibly be. Ever since, you know, obviously when I get older, she starts telling me that and she starts kind of molding me as a man. But that's exactly, you said it almost verbatim to how she did it. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is I'm trying to implement this in my kids, right? That you want to be excellent at whatever you do.
Yeah.
I've got a 13-year-old that, you know, when you're 13, you don't believe anything your parents say at all.
No.
But I'm trying to remind him that how you do your chores, how you do your homework, how you show up, you know, everywhere is how you can't turn it on, right? And you're a big sports guy. I love sports, so I love the analogies, right? If you practice hard, if you get really intentional and you give it your all, you're going to show up and play better in the game. And so advice for new people, any field, right? Like as you're learning, as you're new in it, if you want to succeed, show up every single day and play all out. I guarantee you it's going to yield results when you get in the game, no matter what the game is, right? Like the next level up as an executive at your company.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
that's great advice.
I think it's pretty good advice, right? Every once in a while, right? And so what I'd love to ask you about too, because I think this is a really cool topic and relates to all kinds of different fields and people getting better every day. You've done a phenomenal job, in my opinion, of building a personal brand. And this is something that's not unique to our industry. Like this huge shift, I didn't even know I was doing it as I was building the Matt the Mortgage Guy brand. But now that I've done it and I've seen how impactful it is, I'm like, holy crap! Like I should have gone harder, faster, more, like from the start. And I see little things, and I'm sure we listen to some of the same, you know, people that are talking about brand and marketing and whatnot, about how, you know, there's no longer a 60-second, you know, Coke commercial that's produced by Coke to sell Cokes. There probably still is, but the best way to sell it is somebody who's got a personal brand, who's got an audience that listens to them, who happens to say like, I enjoy Coke Zero, right? And so what have you learned over the last few years? Because Envision Media, Be a Realtor segment, all the stuff you're doing, I love it. And so maybe give everybody else a little bit of insight onto, like, it's obviously done intentionally and you're having fun doing it. I can tell a little bit into that on the personal brand building side.
Yeah. So with the personal brand, a lot of it is just being comfortable with yourself and understanding that you don't need, if you got 10 people in the room, you're probably not going to connect and vibe with 10 people in the room. So why overexert yourself and put yourself in an uncomfortable, fake it till you make it type of deal? I've always been one of those where, I mean, if you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. Cool. That's fine. You know, I'm never going to, I'll point you in the right direction. But, and I think that a lot of that has, when I did that series, I knew it was going to rub a bunch of people the wrong way. Not in just mainly because I understand the realtors, and I understand that your average realtor is 55, 58 years old, and they're probably uncomfortable with doing the videos, and they're uncomfortable with the content creation because they've always done it this way. And that's been a majority of my DMs, my negative DMs that I've got is, why are you making fun of realtors? Why are you doing this? But truthfully, 95% of the things that I've put out are things that I've done. I do touch base. I do touch on, like, for example, I had one the other day where I was on Facebook or Instagram and I saw somebody just bad mouthing one of their best friends for not giving them business and going with another realtor. And I'm like, what the hell would you why would you do that? Why would you lose a friendship over business when really maybe they weren't comfortable with working with you? Maybe they didn't want you to see their financing and they wanted to keep this a little bit distance apart. Think it through before you ruin it. And I think that's where the Be a Realtor thing resonates with a lot of people, because they do see the same type of things that I'm seeing. As far as the personal brand, I would just, be yourself is really, and you do a hell of a job at it. And that's where I started following you and kind of catching and seeing you all over TikTok and doing all the stuff that you were doing. It's the same type of thing. You're consistent, you're real, You're somebody that I vibe with. You're somebody that I would hang out with. We'd go watch a game. And that's where a big portion of where this video comes in, where, and we talk to people all the time that are signing up with Envision. And it's like, we all know Matt's going to manage my escrow. I know he's going to get me through processing to appraisal to closing and so on and so forth. But it's that gap in between of, do I vibe with him? So now that I see Matt more on TikTok and Instagram and seeing his videos, he's somebody that I know, okay, I'll call Matt. I can work with him. It's the ones that aren't doing that aren't showing their personality and showing them being a little bit more human, if you will. And I think that's where the video is genius, and it just kind of comes into that's why everybody needs to be doing video. I think it just shows your personality.
Right. Yeah. I mean, 93% of content that's going to be consumed in 2023 will be video. So like anybody in any business, if you're not making video, I'd suggest you start. You said, I'm not going to vibe with everybody in a room of 10. And like, that's how I've explained it to anybody who I've encouraged or tried to help with the content creation is, if I was going to go stand in front of 100 real estate agents and real estate agents refer business to mortgage folks, that's how it works. I could go up there and I could talk and I could give a presentation, and here's our business and here's, the flow. And by just being myself, 14 of those agents are like, Matt's a cool guy. Going to come talk to me afterwards, exchange business cards. We'll talk more and do business. And like, that's what video is at scale.
Yeah.
And so for people in business too, like I just talked to a colleague in Texas, and he was telling me like, hey, I made some videos and I took your advice where like, if you can't press record and just talk, then you're doing it wrong, because it should be as natural as a conversation when you run into somebody and like, oh, hey, what's up, Doug? Realtor buddy, who sells in 95826. And by doing that, then they call you and they work with you and your team. Like, Matt's the same guy that I saw online. Well, no shit. It's me. Right.
It's the same thing. And then when they see you in person and you've got your consistency down and they're like, that's Matt. That guy's on TikTok and Instagram. I see his videos everywhere. And it's a different type of vibe is what it is. It's more of a comfort zone with it. And you and I were talked about this before, where sometimes when it's too scripted, it feels a little unauthentic, right? My first video I ever did, and I've been doing videos ever since I got into real estate, when I was telling you, we door knock these homes and I'd capture data, email address, phone number, whatever the case may be. And then I immediately hit them with a video back. I would do that through YouTube. And I remember one of my first videos I ever did, it took me like 2.5 hours. I sweat through like 3 of my shirts. You know what I mean? My face was red as hell. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, stop being so fake. Like, I'm from New England. I've got a New England accent that comes out from time to time. I'm like, don't hide that. Don't pull the, why are you trying to? And when I started to kind of realize, listen, you either like me or you don't. At the very end, I'm here to help, and I'm a resource that you can lean on. That's reliable.
Right. I love it. Yeah. That was something too, where I'm in this coaching group, and everyone's talking about like, what do you think about this automation? What do you think about this program? And I said, you know what, guys, I just got out of a 90-minute meeting with a realtor, and it happened to be like an emotional day for me where I had all this stuff on my mind. Realtor came in. I just started talking about personal stuff because I couldn't hide the fact that I was emotional that day. We talked for 90 minutes. I didn't talk about systems. I didn't talk about how fast we order appraisals,
mortgage rates,
none of it.
Yeah.
At the end of 90 minutes, I vibe with you, man.
Yeah.
We're going to do some business together. And so I reminded this coaching squad, like you said, right? Like all the fancy stuff, at the end of the day, it's human beings to do business with other human beings. Hey, Brooks is somebody who I can relate to. I like him. I trust him. It's a big deal buying a house or selling my house. I'm going to hire him. Like, I see the track record. I know he did 80 million last year. So like, he got that many to the finish line. Like, the guy knows what he's doing when it comes to the real estate side of things. But as a human being, it's someone I can relate to. Someone, if I have a question about all this stuff I don't understand, I'm going to get an honest answer, because that's the vibe I get from him. So,
and that's the thing. And people see that. People see if you're stretching. Nobody likes to be sold. And I've never been, and I tell my clients that, like, when I go into a listing appointment, I'm like, listen, I'm not here to sell you on hiring me. I'm simply showing you what I've done for others, what I could do for you. When I get to selling is when I get the buyer in front of me, when we're negotiating contracts, we're back and forth. But I'm not, it's not, who likes going to a car dealership and seeing people start lurking around the windows as you start coming into it? It's an uncomfortable feeling. It's like, let me do my thing. Let me bring the value. And if we work, we work. If we don't, I'll point you in the right direction. Super simple.
Cool, man. Well, that's awesome. all great stuff. I don't want to keep you too long. I'd love
Yeah.
to ask you a question just because it comes to mind too about like all the cool stuff you're doing. Like, what do you see in the future? And this can be real estate, this can be marketing, this could be anything. Just a question to, spur some thought about like where things are headed, maybe, from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, it's video, it's video, it's video, it's video, and I mean, I think what we've seen over the past couple years with the pandemic and just the Zoom meetings, it's accelerated the use of video and the importance of video like through the roof. And I do truly feel. I was talking with a good friend of mine. Actually, she used to be a coach of ours a couple weeks ago, and we were going through kind of like how the transition of video has come through and how important these video topics and being able to be comfortable on video is. And it's like the agents that aren't embracing video are getting passed by the agents as far as visibility that are just all over video, right? So like for the most part, some of the younger generation who have always had the cell phone, they're always doing their selfies and doing their thing, they're comfortable with it. You can have an agent be in the industry for 2 years and pump out a ton of content consistently. They tend to look at like the authoritarian figure in this space, regardless of how much they've done. So I do think video plays a big part. In Vision, we've been putting together, we just rolled out the service recently where we're scaling our virtual content service, where essentially we're batching short form content to realtors and lenders all over the country. Our app just got accepted by Apple 2 days ago. So we're like really pumping this out. And as we've been kind of testing this and beta testing it and kind of teasing it through TikTok and Facebook, Instagram, we just the amount of inquiries that we've had has been overwhelming, truthfully. So I do think it's the content creation. It's going to be consistent. It's relevant content, not the dictionary stuff. What is an FHA loan? FHA stands for, it's how can an FHA loan benefit me when buying a home? What are the pros and cons? What's bad about an FHA loan? And break it down with examples. And I think that type of content is going to always be there, mixed with the evergreen type stuff, right? 1031 exchange, how does that work? And then kind of playing it into some of the new relevant stuff with interest rates more than doubling in 9 months. So I do think it's content creation mixed with video and just being consistent as hell. And then we'll be out of this shifting market at some point. We just need to weather the storm. Sometimes you need to take punches for a few months and then kind of keep the ball rolling until you can kind of get back on your feet.
Right. Yeah. I think the good news is that like the best of the best professionals in our industries, are going to be around. So the level of professional that you're working with in Q2 of 23 or Q3 of 23 is going to be higher level, because the ones that, aren't doing it at a high level just are no longer going to be doing it. So
yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, man. That was
Of course,
all
brother.
great stuff. I'm super excited to continue to watch Envision Media and Brooks Landry Group. I'll leave all the links to all your social stuff so people can check that out down below. Kind of alarm we got here. Probably lunchtime.
Yeah. I can hear my stomach. I'm eating. It's time to eat.
Got to remember to eat. Yeah. Thanks for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.